fun fact, guys, I did not know how to work the music there because Tyler always does that. But welcome in. Happy Friday. Special Friday happy hour show. Bear with me as I'm trying to get everything set up. Hope everyone's having a fantastic week. Hope everything's been going well for you guys. Hold on a second. There we go. Now we're good. All right, so welcome in. We have our daily Fourth and Wrong show. It is Friday, June 21st, I believe. I don't know. Got a pretty quick episode today. We're going over the updated lines for the Game of the Year lines from Circa Sports. They released about 100 games for the college football season. We're going to focus on the SEC ones, and I'm going to tell you which games are the locks of the year for SEC picks. Now, listen, not to brag or toot my own horn, not saying that we're great at gambling by any means, but the midsummer lock of the year that we've thrown out there every single year, a lot of times it's Georgia over Florida. Spoiler alert. We have been right on it 5 of the last 6 years. So hope you guys are taking notes, hopefully making some money, all the above. But like I said, today's episode, SEC locks of the year from the Game of the Year odds released from Circa. Let's start with, I got 3 for you, and then I've got a best of the rest in case some of you want some extra action. Let's start with the second week of the season, Texas at Michigan. Now, I've been a little bit critical of Texas because I think they're coming into a much tougher situation than their fans understand, going into the SEC and having just a little bit more heightened level of physicality and competition week after week. That being said, Texas is going to be really good. Like, there's not a time where I think Texas is going to be down a lot like they have been in the last decade. Now that we're in the NIL era, still a lot of talent on that team. They've recruited really well. Obviously, Sark has been fantastic at getting that roster turned around. I think when he got there, they had 8 offensive linemen and 18 receivers on that roster. He's done a phenomenal job of getting that turned around. Here's the thing. I think Texas is going to be good. The schedule permits them, will allow them to probably be at least a 10-win team. Going to Michigan week 2, Michigan has the biggest stadium in the country. I don't know how much home field advantage you're going to get there because it's not like it's a crazy loud environment. And it's something that Texas won't be used to as well. This is game 2 in the Sharon Moore era, replacing Jim Harbaugh. And listen, I like Texas in general in this game, but one of the main reasons I like Texas to cover the 5 points is because Michigan, I think, is going to fall off the face of the earth this year. Considering what they lost from last year, you lost your head coach, you lost Connor Stallions, you lost half of your coaching staff, you lost 13 players in the NFL draft. And here's the thing, not only do you lose all of those and you have this game in week 2, you also have to sit there and you have 36% returning production, which is 128th in the country out of 134 teams. So that's not great. And you're also talking about a situation where they haven't really recruited that well. Like this is a national championship team a year ago, and they only finished with the 16th ranked recruiting class in the country following that up. So it's not like they have recruited crazy well in the last 5 years. They only have one class that's inside the top 10 over the last 5 recruiting cycles. So I think Texas goes up to Michigan. I think they prove a point early. I think they cover the 5. So that's the first lock of the year. The next one, this is like one of the most underrated games that no one's talking about for the whole season, I think, in the SEC. I don't know if any of you have watched Mizzou and Oklahoma fans interact on Twitter, but it is a treat, especially if you're not invested whatsoever. There's not a lot of love lost between these two teams who used to be, conference, not rivals, but obviously competitors. I think this is a situation where Mizzou, who does have a very, very manageable schedule, I don't want to call it easy, but it's very manageable. You get Oklahoma coming to Como, and I don't think a lot of us know exactly what Oklahoma's going to be. It's hard to nail them down. I got a good feeling what we are going to see out of Mizzou. It's going to be a lot of what we saw last year, which is a really good offense, really good, efficient quarterback play, and maybe one of the most underrated receiving corps in the entire country, highlighted by Luther Burden, who could be a top 5 pick. Oklahoma, after all the things I just said about Mizzou, Oklahoma also had the 112th ranked pass defense in the country last year. If that wasn't bad enough, they're going on the road to Como, which probably doesn't seem like a very tough environment. But Oklahoma doesn't have a win on the road versus a ranked opponent in the last 5 years. The last time they beat a ranked team on the road was 2019 against Baylor, which was a 3-point win that they had that miraculous comeback when they're down like 28-3. I think this is like, out of all the games on Mizzou's calendar, obviously the Bama one's a big one. They got a couple more. I'm sure Tennessee on the road, that's going to be a big one. This one is the one that I think is probably circled more than anything because the lack of respect they probably feel like they've gotten from Oklahoma for decades, not just in the SEC, obviously, but also for the long, long time in the Big 12. So that's my second lock of the year. Mizzou covering 2 against Oklahoma. Let's go to the last one that hurts my heart the most. Georgia is a 5-point favorite at Alabama on September 28th in Tuscaloosa. Listen, I think Bama has done a really good job this offseason. Kind of, what's the best way to put this? Like kind of like just like plugging the holes of making sure that this thing's like, the water's not going to go over the dam or anything like that. Like DeBoer's done a phenomenal job recruiting. I think that from a coaching standpoint, he's one of the best X's and O's guys in the country. I go on and on about how good of a job I think he's done already, and I think he's going to do in Tuscaloosa. That's all great. Georgia is a different animal. They're the best team in the country, and I understand that they have had a very difficult time beating Alabama, but that's mainly in Atlanta, and that was also mainly with Nick Saban. I think that when you give Kirby Smart any sort of situation where he can have a chip on his shoulder, which he obviously will have coming into this season, you look at Georgia as a favorite against ranked opponents. They are 13-5 against the spread in their last 3 years against ranked opponents. Not only that, but in those 13 games they won, only 4 of them were they a favorite by single digits. They have been nearly a 2-touchdown favorite in every game against ranked opponents over the last 3 years. And on top of all that, they are covering those spreads, not just covering the spread, going over the spread amount by an average of 19 points per game. So if the spread's 10, they're winning by 29. Like, they have been absolutely dominant. And I think that this could be a good game for probably 3 quarters. But if Kirby Smart gets a chance to put any sort of foot on Bama's throat, or just have a welcome to the SEC moment for Kalen DeBoer, maybe get the monkey off his back, whatever you want to say. If he's working through some demons of all the losses they've had the past couple of years, however you want to phrase it, if Georgia gets the opportunity to put it on Bama, they absolutely will. And I think that Bama is going to be really good still. But where they're going to struggle is in the secondary, for one. And I don't know if they're going to be able to match Georgia up front. And again, Kirby, chip on your shoulder, Carson Beck, all those receivers, 5 points is just not enough. It's just not enough at all. So those are my 3 locks of the year. Make sure you guys follow along with that. Tell me if I'm right, wrong, anything in between. And then last but not least, we have the best of the rest. There's 100 games they've released, and we're just like I said, we're only focusing on the SEC ones. But from the SEC ones, here's 3 extras that I think could also be really good. A&M's a 10-point favorite against Arkansas. I hope Arkansas is great. I want Sam Pittman to live forever and be a head coach in this conference forever. He's great. No one's pulling against Sam Pittman. A&M's a 10-point favorite, though, against them. I think A&M's going to be better than people think, and I don't think Arkansas is going to be very good. So that's the first one. The next one, Kentucky's a 1-point favorite over Louisville. Listen, Louisville was a team last year that was like somehow under the radar, even though they won 11 games. They were pretty close to maybe making a case to be on the outside looking in for the College Football Playoff. They made it the ACC Championship game. Like I said, 11-1, all that good stuff. They are a 1-point underdog to Kentucky in that rivalry game at the end of the season. Kentucky, I think, is going to be one of the most improved teams in the country. The schedule's brutal, but they are going to be very, very good, very well coached, like they always are under Mark Stoops. Here's the thing, too. They have 3 returning offensive linemen, which I think they're going to get back to the big blue wall stuff. I think they're going to have an upgraded quarterback with Brock Vandergriff taking over for I can't remember his name because he's very forgettable, even though I thought he was going to be great. Devin Leary going to last year. But the thing about Kentucky that I like the most, they have, I think, 17 returning starters, something like that. And on defense, they returned 9 of 11, including 6 of the front 7 in their linebackers and defensive line. The only returning starter, or only starter they have that's not a returning starter in that front 7 is the transfer from Georgia, Dumas Johnson, which that's probably an upgrade if we're being honest. So I like Kentucky to win that. I think Kentucky, the ceiling is going to be close to the floor with Kentucky because of how difficult the schedule is. That they get Texas, they get Georgia. I'm sure there's a bunch of other ones that I'm forgetting. Louisville's not like an easy out necessarily, but they are going to jump up and get somebody that they're not supposed to. They just 1,000% this year. Last but not least, Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Ole Miss is a 19-point favorite against Mississippi State. Now, when I first saw this, I was like, man, that seems way too high because it's the Egg Bowl. It seems like it's always close. Also, Jeff Levy in his first year at Mississippi State, kind of like in a odd situation for him taking over. And they're still kind of, I don't say spiraling, but just trying to get their feet, under them after the tragedy from Mike Leach. But this is what I kept going back to. Even though Levy and Kiffin were, Levy was a coordinator for Kiffin. Like they obviously are familiar with each other. I don't think Kiffin wants to embarrass him by any means. But you start looking at the season as a whole, Ole Miss is a team that a lot of people think could go to the playoff. I think they're going to go 10-2, right? They're probably going to lose to Georgia at home. They've got LSU on the road. They've got Oklahoma coming into town. They've got a couple of tough games on that schedule. I think that this is going to be they're going to be 9-2 going into this game. So they need to get to a 10th win. And they're going to need this game because they're probably not going to make the SEC championship game in Atlanta. So they're going to need this game as like their last resume builder to get into the playoff. So 19 points is a lot. But I think in that situation, day after Thanksgiving this year, at home, full national television audience, I think Kiffin probably runs it up a little bit, and I think they will cover 19. And plus, no offense to Mississippi State, they're just, from a talent standpoint, they're just not that good. So those are the locks of the year. Tell me, like I said in the comments, we're right, wrong, anything in between. Hope you guys have had a phenomenal week. We'll be back next week. We are back to doing our live show, back from vacation, all that good stuff. We'll have the live show with me and Tyler on Monday at 8 or 8:30. And then we'll have nightly shows every week, like it says at the top here on the graphic, Monday through Thursday, 8 p.m. And a Friday episode at 11 if you guys are nice. So love all y'all. Hope you have a fantastic weekend, and we will talk to you next week.